Welcome to Chat and Shit, the podcast that's technically about gut health, but who knows what pan the chat will end up in. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Alana. After a life of cabbage soup diets, energy drinks, and travelling the world as DJs,
we volunteered for medical research.
We sent off loads of poo samples and found out that despite being identical twins, our guts are completely different.
Basically the same as strangers.
We also learned that gut health is serious stuff and linked to pretty much everything from mental health to immunity.
When we first started on our journey, our favourite thing to do was to take the experts and scientists out for pints to pick their brains about the latest findings.
So we thought we'd do that again with some of our celeb pals so they can ask the top experts in the world anything they like.
Literally anything. This is Chat and Shit. So women's health is so under-researched, and with so many young women suffering with things like PCOS, it's so important we raise awareness and talk about symptoms and hopefully some lifestyle education on ways to deal with it. Now, we're joined by Tillie, who's packed an insane amount into your acting career. So many shows, including Waterloo Road, and also you're like, I can act, but I can also present. So you've done that for CBBC, you've done BBC documentaries, and you appeared on Christmas Strictly last year.
Yes, I jived my way in there somehow.
You should jive my way in.
Who's your partner?
Neil.
Oh, right, yeah.
Nicest man ever.
You should really be 60 with what you've packed in, but you're still a spring chicken.
I'm just a baby.
Spring chicken. Someone else who likes to fill her days with a few things is Ro Huntriss. She's got 2 master's degrees, 13 years of experience in clinical practice, the founder for Tillie's Dietitian UK, author, chair of the maternal fertility group specialist group of the BDA. You're also chief nutrition officer for the Simple app. So not much really. I could continue because there is more, but I feel like we've not got a long enough podcast. So when Tillie said to us that she wanted to do an episode on PCOS, I was like, it needs to be Ro.
Thank you.
So thank you both for taking the time. Now, Tillie, we know you're super passionate about raising awareness and talking openly about PCOS. Mm-hmm. Can you just tell us a bit about how you were diagnosed, how you found out about it? Because I personally don't know much about it at all.
Well, this is why I'm so happy I'm here, because I'm still on my journey of finding out. But the way I got told was like super backdoor. So I kind of went for a scan for something else, and then they were like, oh, we can see some cysts on your ovaries. And I was like, what? What is that? And they were like, oh, it might be PCOS. And I was like, well, as soon as I got told might be, I was like, right, well, I might be following everything I could do to make it better.
Let me just go and Dr. Google immediately.
So I was like, and they were like, anti-inflammatory diet. And I kind of eat an anti-inflammatory diet anyway with like being into fitness and whatnot. But I just added a few things in. Like I heard cinnamon was good for it. So I started adding that into my yogurt and just doing a few things whilst I was kind of in limbo land, whether I had it or not. And then I went for another checkup at the doctor, and then the doctor kind of said, yeah, well, that might be to do with your PCOS. So I was like, oh, so I have got it then. And she went, well, I don't know. And then I was like, what? And then she said, well, one of my friends had PCOS. This is the doctor talking. And like, she just threw a name, Professor Bailey, was it? And I was like, right, I need to go private and I need to find out what this is. And then I had a scan like last week, and I've got like 37 on the left, 45 on the right. I don't know the exact number, but I'm definitely in the polycystic category because it's over 20, I think.
Yeah, and I think we actually have to be really thankful for those backdoor people, as you say, because sometimes, especially because we were just discussing before about the characteristics of people with PCOS, generally it's associated with people who are of a higher weight. And you have something that's called lean PCOS as well. So it may not be so obvious to your doctor to pick up. And then on a scan, somebody has said, hang on a minute, you've got quite a lot of follicles on this egg. So
that's what they said, follicles,
exactly.
Yeah. And that's another thing as well, because the doctor said, well, you might have PCOS, but you don't look like you have. That's what, and that was actually the doctor did actually say that.
Yeah, so it may have been, if it wasn't for that person, you may not have found out about your diagnosis. And this is why so many people can actually be undiagnosed with PCOS. But when you have the knowledge about the diagnosis, you can start to understand the condition and then start to understand how to best manage it for yourself.
And what actually is PCOS? Because I've heard it a few times, and a lot of our friends in our friendship group say, I think I might have it, but I'm not sure. And it is actually quite common as well, isn't it?
It's really common, and basically it's a hormonal disorder, and it's found in around about 1 in 10 women of reproductive age. So it's like, if you go downstairs, if you go to a cafe and you see 10 women of reproductive age, it's likely that one of them is likely to have it. And in terms of how it's diagnosed, because it can manifest very differently in different people. And to get a diagnosis, you need to have 2 out of the 3 following things. So either irregular or absent periods, high levels of androgens, which are male hormones, and polycystic ovaries. And what that actually means, so poly means many, and the cysts, they're not actually technically cysts, they're follicles.
It's quite a scary word, that.
Yeah,
I think that's what made me instantly... Like, when you just laid on in your thing and it's like, you've got cysts on your ears. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Cysts sound...
They sound
super scary. Yeah.
Exactly. And they're not, but it's just this name has stuck for so long that they're just not going to change
can they
it.
pop? I was oh my gosh.
Yeah, exactly. And all follicles are basically they house immature eggs. Basically. So, and then what happens in a normal menstrual cycle is one of these follicles become dominant and then is released to ovulation. And then when that egg is released, it could be fertilized, which can lead to pregnancy. But what we find in PCOS is that there's so many follicles and hormones are not balanced. So sometimes that ovulation doesn't occur. So that is why we can have absent or irregular periods. We often see very long cycles, and again, it's to do with this hormonal imbalance, and this is one of the effects that we see, the kind of those irregular periods.
I mean, it is crazy that 1 in 10 women get it, and we don't
But the pill hides it, apparently.
Really?
So a lot of people that are on contraception may have it, but because they're getting that regular withdrawal, they've not got a clue.
Yeah, and it's something that a lot of people do tend to do. So it would probably be useful to just even discuss about the symptoms that people face. So weight management can be really, really tricky for a lot of people with PCOS, because a lot of people with PCOS can have insulin resistance. Okay. So it makes weight management more challenging. We often see with those higher levels of male hormones, so androgens, we can see oily skin, acne, we often see hair thinning, and also excess hair growth where we may not expect it. So it can be kind of on someone's face, chin, arms, chest, things like that. So these are all kind of things to look out for. If people are struggling to get pregnant as well, it can be a symptom of it. So yeah, these are things that are kind of encapsulated. But so as you can imagine, with those symptoms, it could be really difficult for people to live with, really difficult. And people want a solution. And the pill is actually, the hormonal contraceptive pill is often something that doctors will offer to people with PCOS to help them to manage their symptoms. And it does that by helping to basically manage the hormones. It helps to reduce the testosterone, which is again an androgen and the male hormone that we want to see less of. And actually, because I know there's a lot of worry about having the pill and using it as management for PCOS, but there can actually be beneficial things from it as well, in that if people with PCOS aren't having periods or they're having them less often, then the endometrium, which is kind of like the womb, the lining, it can get quite thick because it's not shedding.
Oh yeah,
and that's what they said to. That's what they said to me, that it's getting thicker and thicker.
Right.
Like you need to have at least 3 a year, is it?
Yeah, we need to make sure that we're ovulating or having a cycle regularly. And with the pill, it basically creates like an artificial cycle in essence. But what happens as a result of that is that lining then sheds, which is good, because we don't want that lining to be too thick for too long, because it can increase the risk of endometrial issues such as endometrial cancer down the line. So it's one reason why it's really important not to ignore PCOS, and to actually really manage it and manage those symptoms.
Well, I think as well, and you were like saying before, is there a reason why some people get it and some people don't get it?
Yeah, why did I get the bad luck card?
Yeah, and I think, you know what, sadly, sometimes it is just kind of down to luck. It's not a condition that is driven by diet and lifestyle. You don't kind of like eat or live yourself badly into PCOS. The cause really is unknown, but it is thought to have a genetic link. We often see it in families. So we do see family links, but apart from that, we don't really know much more about the cause. So yeah, sadly, I think bad luck plays a little part in it, and
It's
it just
okay.
I know
I'm very lucky in other aspects.
exactly.
So I'll take it.
Exactly.
It sounds like you have the brilliant, investigative, curious personality to try and figure out more about it.
I'm
Yeah.
like a solution finder. I want to and also I think being a young girl, it's super hard,
Oh, women are incredible.
Yeah, we are.
Patriarchy. Another thing. This is another thing of the patriarchy, that 1 in 10 women have it, and it's so under researched and nobody knows. Anyway.
Yeah, but I just think also like the generation that I'm growing up in, there's loads of pressure. You're seeing so-and-so on a private jet looking like this, looking like that. And it's like, if you've got all these symptoms, you, like, I don't know, I've even found out that maybe certain types of fitness training that a lot of people do isn't the best for PCOS and things like that. And then you're like chasing your tail and you just want to fit in and you just want to be the ideal of what society wants, which is actually really unrealistic. Let's just all calm down. It could be super stressful, super like debilitating, because being a young girl is hard enough, and then you've got skin problems, you've got excess hair, you
irregular periods,
so and so. It's like what? So like it's a huge issue that I think is kind of just like, oh, it's hormones. It's like what?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
affecting my life.
But you know, like your attitude towards that is exactly the attitude that we want, because it's like, right, okay, this is the situation. It's something that I'm not going to be able to change genetically. So let's find out as much as I can about it.
And try my best.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's exactly the perfect attitude to have.
On that as well, like I think a lot of, did you know that obviously you were still reeling from being told, but that our guts are linked to all of these issues, which is why you see so much online, and a lot of it is a lot of charlatan information, let's face it, around things like, the PCOS diet or whatever. What is that connection, and how are our guts linked to our hormones?
Yeah, and I think it just appears that our gut health seems to be linked to pretty much everything, every aspect of our health. But I know you guys find it as fascinating as I do. But yeah, I think one thing that's really interesting that research shows in women with PCOS is that their microbiome is different to people who don't have PCOS. So people with PCOS tend to have lower levels of lactobacillus.
Right.
Yeah. And we actually see that in endometriosis as well, funnily enough. And there's research, like systematic reviews, meta-analyses coming out to show that probiotic therapy can be a useful tool for people with PCOS.
That's the woman's forum. We'll get you that.
Right, well, whatever. We have a
Big bag for you.
and doing this on the train home.
And I think it's important to note that, as we've already said, PCOS manifests differently for different people. So probiotic therapy may work for somebody and help to manage symptoms in some people. It might not be the answer or a solution for everybody. But with PCOS management, it really is about all of these pieces of the puzzle, and everybody's jigsaw looks different.
Yeah, I was just about to say, isn't everybody individual? Because like I follow I've got an Instagram account where I just follow PCOS things, and I'm like, actually, you know what? I'm not hungry because I don't know what I should eat and what I shouldn't eat, because it's quite stressful.
Yeah.
Like some people are like, no dairy, no this. And then people are like, you need dairy, you don't need. And I'm just like, whoa. So I'm like kind of taking everything with a pinch of salt and trialing and testing what works for me and what doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Well, the guidelines around dietary interventions for PCOS, it's very much, there isn't one size that fits all. But as I mentioned, in terms of like the insulin resistance that seems to be, common across a lot of people with PCOS, consuming low GI, so low glycemic index carbohydrates, can be really helpful in terms of managing that insulin resistance. When the insulin resistance is better controlled, it means that we have better regulation of our hormones and our symptoms can improve just from that alone, and it can help in terms of weight management, which a lot of people with PCOS want to achieve. But just to kind of give a little bit more information on that, so all carbohydrate containing foods have a glycemic index. So foods can be low GI or they can be high GI, they can be somewhere in the middle. And what that basically means is the rate at which that carbohydrate containing food releases its glucose, releases its sugar into the bloodstream. Exactly. So if you've got high GI food, it releases it really quickly. So if you think like a sports drink, like an energy drink, or like a refined breakfast cereal with lots of sugar, you know, that might be really quite high. Whereas things that are lower are things that are kind of whole foods, less processed. Things like fruits, vegetables, dairy is actually low GI as well. Things like pasta is low GI.
Hey.
Yeah, I know, right? And things like porridge, oats. So choosing a lower GI diet can be a really good foundation for people. But yeah, there is a lot online around the gluten, the dairy thing. And from a science point of view, there isn't the evidence to back that up. Okay. So you wouldn't really see very many dietitians say, right, everybody should go and cut out dairy, cut out gluten.
Because it's a bit of a hype, isn't it?
It is a hype. Like, it is a hype.
A lot of my friends are like, oh yeah, I'm getting gluten-free pasta, and then look at me like, you should too. And I'm like,
You're
I like gluten.
It tastes like shit, no thank you.
Yeah, but you're going to find this crazy. So I used to be like, before I knew I had PCOS, like it can affect your mood as well.
Yeah.
And like after a night out, I'd fall into a takeaway and get obviously white carb cheesy chips.
Yeah.
And then I'd standard procedure. But I would find like the next day I'm very emotional. I feel a bit up and down. And I used to be like, oh, it's booze blues. Then
Booze blues. Oh my god, I love
Anxiety.
yeah,
anxiety.
Can we all take a note of that?
Yeah, exactly.
Blues.
But then I actually, obviously, I found out about my, like, doing more research with PCOS. I started coming home with my slightly wavy brain and having sweet potato, high protein cheesy chips.
Yeah.
And I feel much better the next day. And I don't know, I'm not a scientist and I'm not a dietitian, but there must be something in that. So,
that one.
you know.
Yeah, it's trying to find things that work. So regardless of whether it's kind of like just normal chips or sweet potato chips, so neither of those contain gluten. Your sweet potato may be like slightly lower glycemic index.
That's what I was thinking it is.
And it's like if you pair things with if you pair carbohydrates with either protein or fat, then it lowers the glycemic index of that meal. So it can have an effect.
Would the cheese be counted as protein in this instance?
And fat.
Right.
Oh, bingo.
I know. But I think just a note on gluten in that even though, you know, I wouldn't go out to everybody and say, go and follow a gluten-free diet, we still need to take everybody on an individual basis. And some people do react to gluten and gluten-containing foods. So if somebody, you know, comes to me and says, I really think that this could be a trigger for me, you can still experiment with it, but don't just cut it out and then don't pay attention to it. Cut it out, monitor your symptoms, and then reintroduce it. And then see if you get symptoms off the back, and then that is when people can understand whether that should be like a food group that they want to include or they don't.
So it should be with caution, because obviously it stays in your system. But you know, if you're out with your family, you think, I really want that gluten-y pizza. Right, I'm going to take
exactly.
the hit, but maybe not in my day-to-day habitual diet. I might opt to go gluten-free.
And how long would you have to do that for? Like, say Tillie was like, right, I'm going to try it. I'm going to go gluten-free. It's going to be annoying for 2 weeks. Definitely not going to do it over Christmas. But if I were going to do a time, what would that time frame be to take it out?
I think it's kind of individual, but I would actually say it would probably be longer. It would be longer than that, because it can take a while for things to kind of calm down. But again, I just think if somebody's going to do that, there needs to be a reason for it.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that we're not just cutting out foods for the sake of it. So cutting out, because it's annoying to cut out gluten. It's in so many things. So it's like, if we can keep it in the diet, if we can keep dairy in the diet
and manage
we will.
Why would it?
Exactly. But if it's a trigger, then we can look to see if it is, and then look to exclude it if that works for that person, if they do have a gluten intolerance.
Do you have to do a test? Can you do a test to have a gluten intolerance, or do you?
And this is watch. We'll get on our soapbox. Here's your platform.
Because I had a friend that went and got a test and was like, I cannot eat gluten.
Yeah, I mean,
Deep breath. Okay, so there are food intolerance tests that you can do and that you can buy online. Now, the body that regulates us as dietitians, called the British Dietetic Association, they don't recommend these tests. The reason why is it talks about like an immune response. So people can kind of get a report back and it can say, right, you've got a response to this, really random foods.
And all the fun stuff, usually like wine, it's like all usually the stuff that you
Brilliant.
It can be anything.
Then.
But the thing is, these foods may not actually give you any symptoms. So we don't.
I've seen what you're saying. So your body doesn't like it, but it's not doing anything. So it's
Well,
all right.
it might just give you no reaction. It may be kind of like coming up in this blood test, but it doesn't actually affect your body in any way. So what I would say is, if people do want to do these tests, definitely interpret with caution, but don't just then go and exclude all of these things out of your diet. You need
sending off a
to.
lock of your hair in the post ain't going to tell you that, is it?
No,
Which causes
it's-
more anxiety in the long run,
It
which
does.
then exacerbates symptoms and all the rest of it.
It does. And the best thing, really, if we're wanting to find out about intolerances, things that you may be kind of like sensitive to, is a good old-fashioned food and
Trial and
symptom
error.
diary,
Yeah.
starting to understand it from that side. And then there are certain diets, I mean, it's not necessarily PCOS specific, but more like down the IBS route, low FODMAP, if people have heard that. But I think if you're going down that route, it's a really good idea to speak to a dietitian and have somebody qualified actually support you in doing that, because it can land you in a situation that you don't want to be in, which is a highly just restricted diet that's unnecessary.
And then you're in your kitchen like that with a trifle after you've thought, sod this.
Yeah,
Exactly.
A
And you can really, really go down a rabbit hole with it. But what you were saying before about like an anti-inflammatory diet, that is actually it's a really just good, great place to start. We've already said about like the low glycemic index approach, but with PCOS there is kind of low grade chronic inflammation. So by having an anti-inflammatory diet, it can help to manage that. And with inflammation, again, that's associated with insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is associated with all the hormones, and then it can potentially have an impact, like a positive impact on symptoms if we're following an anti-inflammatory diet.
Well, I'll tell you what, heck chicken sausages have been in a real great bit of business since,
Yeah.
since
Really?
I found out
Yeah.
about
Yeah, so
this.
what is the
anti-inflammatory. What is
anti-inflammatory diet? What is it?
Cool. So a good foundational approach to the anti-inflammatory diet is the Mediterranean diet.
Oh, bingo.
I know. We come back round again, once again, to the
doing something
Mediterranean.
different today.
All hail the Mediterranean diet.
Everyone's moving to Italy. Bye bye.
Can we go?
Yeah.
No?
We should do a special.
Yeah, chat shit on tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But basically, the foundation of it is plenty of fruits and vegetables. And we want lots of different colours, different types. So we've got different nutrients. We've also got a range of antioxidants, whole grains in there as well. So again, whole grains aren't processed. They've got antioxidants in them. And then we want healthy fats in there. So extra virgin olive oil is a component of the Mediterranean diet, but a really, really important one is omega-3.
Do you like fish?
Fish. Oily fish. Yes, exactly. Oily fish. And omega-3 is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory agents, if you like, from the diet. Absolutely. So that's a really, really key thing to have.
People miss that in like the high protein hype. I think omega-3, when you think about it, you just think I'm just going to have
Loads of chicken.
Yeah,
Just gonna go sell
but
out
actually,
Nando's.
like oily fish is really, really important in terms of inflammation. It's good for brain health. It's good for eye health. It's good for so many things.
When I think of oily fish, I just think of salmon, but what other
So salmon, things like sardines,
above sardines?
mackerel,
same, actually.
things like that as
If
well.
you were
They're
vegan or
good
veggie,
fish.
how could you get your omega-3 up? Would it have to be through supplementation?
Yeah, so there's different types of omega-3. So there's another one, ALA, that you might find in like walnuts and like chia seeds and things like that. But actually the type that we want to long chain fatty acids called EPA and DHA, they're the ones that really tackle the inflammation. They really help to support health. And we find those in the diet only in oily fish. However, you can get it in supplement form from algae. So that's what we recommend to vegans, to have algae, EPA and DHA supplements.
As in like from the pond.
tablet.
Yeah, as in like under the sea.
Remember
Yeah,
we used to have algae or
An algae for
we used to
our
have it
fish.
for our fish
Right.
tank. Yeah, and you just
What
go
do
up
you-
the side.
What is it, like its own animal?
No,
Yeah,
it's like
it's like a fish. It looks like
yeah,
a
the
fish.
alligator used to be like a little fish, and it used to just go
Does it
around
have a
the side of
big
our fish
mouth and-
tank.
Oh.
Yeah, you're bigger and bigger and bigger. with all the algae.
Pocahontas and Nico are in
What,
there
so they
just
get
living
bigger?
their
Yeah.
lives. Yeah.
Bigger, bigger, bigger.
Kidding.
No, it's like a little thing. It's like it cleans your fish tank.
Oh, wow.
Crazy.
Who knew that reached working class Scotland to have an algae eater in your fish
Exactly.
tank, you know?
So just circling back to the gut health and PCOS thing, is the main thing because of what you're eating affects your hormones, which then affects it, or are they linked in some sort of other way?
Yeah, so there's the microbiome aspect, but also going back to inflammation again, what happens in our gut can very much modulate what happens in terms of insulin resistance as well. So again, it then follows that circle back to the insulin, back to the reproductive hormones. So it links in that way as well. And there's associations with like the management of estrogen and other hormones as a result of what happens in the gut. So there's that side of things. But then, if people have certain intolerances, then obviously that plays a role from like the gut health side of things as well.
And so Tillie's like just recently been diagnosed. You're on this journey. We've spoken a lot bit about the contraceptive pill. We've spoken about food. Is there anything else? Is there other medications or other lifestyle tips and factors that Tillie could be doing to help?
Yeah. So I think, a really good thing at the moment is to, just kind of like explore, learn, take it all in, start to make sense of things. But as we said, in terms of the diet, so med diet is a great place to start. Low GI. Some people, this is maybe like less relevant for you, but if people are looking at weight management, sometimes we find with the patients that we work with, if they're looking to lose weight, a slightly lower carbohydrate diet, lower carb, higher protein can help. Again,
should you not overeat protein, but
think about
macro wise, you better off
having
being on the
a
highest
good
scale.
emphasis on protein can really help. There can be so there's medication as well. So we've spoken about the contraceptive pill, which can manage hormones. There is a prescription medication called metformin. That is,
I've heard about this.
Yeah, quite a few of our friends that were trying, got PCOS that tried for babies, took metformin when they were trying.
So it's like
horrible side effects or not?
So it's an insulin sensitizer. So it again helps to reduce that insulin resistance. Now it can cause GI upset, so gastrointestinal upset, so loose stools perhaps. But there is a type of metformin that is slow release.
Okay.
So with that, you're less likely to get those side effects. But also there's supplements as well. So there's a supplement called inositol as well, and there's been
So I tried taking that before,
right.
and it made me feel a bit sick.
Right.
Is it strong?
So with that, it might be thinking about the dose. So if you were taking X dose and it made you feel a little bit nauseous, you could try halving the dose.
Okay, yeah. A little bit of trial and error.
Yeah,
A bit of trial and error.
Yeah, and then seeing if that works. And again, with something like taking a supplement, if it doesn't make a difference, stop.
Yeah.
So like you can do it for a few months. If you notice no difference in terms of like cycle regularity, improvement in symptoms, there may not be much point in,
I think
in
it's
taking it.
but then I started taking it on a night after my like big evening meal, and I think that got on better. I think it was when I was taking it first thing on the morning. I was
Right,
like,
and maybe an empty stomach.
yeah.
So these are all the things. So you're already on your journey to finding out these things for you, which is good.
I saw inositol, but then I saw berberine, and I was like, do you take both? Do you take one? It's like, oh.
Yeah, I know. It can become a little bit of a minefield. Another thing that it's really wise for, people in general, but people with PCOS to check is their vitamin D levels.
Oh, really?
Because if people are deficient in vitamin D, it's associated with heightened symptoms with PCOS. So, and it's really, really easy to correct.
I was going to say, it's an easy one to fit.
Really easy.
Right, is there foods you can eat that are high in vitamin D, or is it more?
It's a supplement.
Yeah, but you can get little spray ones so easy.
Yeah.
Like one that's a little spray.
Yeah.
I've
I get
heard
one
the
for me and then
spray-
one for my son. He's one and he goes with his little tongue and he's like, I'm like, there you go.
Exactly. So
Isn't the spray better as well? Because it absorbs quicker.
Potentially. I mean, like I've done a bit of scoping research, and actually like tablets raise vitamin D levels, sprays
Tomato,
raise
tomato,
vitamin D levels,
yeah.
soda gummies. It's more just like
Whatever's on offer.
whatever's on offer. Yeah, you know, we're in a cost of living crisis, so
yeah, whatever the cheapest one is. We always say that people always ask us like, or they'd say like, what kombucha do you drink? What live yogurt do you drink? And like hooking them up, and like I always think sometimes you have to be super practical and be like,
Whatever's on offer.
Holland and Barrett's got a
whichever one you can afford.
2 for 3.
99p,
Yeah.
There you go.
you know.
There we go. Perfect. And yet, you know, other things, it could be at some point, if you haven't found success in managing your symptoms, you could trial something like a probiotic. And then you mentioned exercise before, which is a really interesting discussion point, I think, with PCOS, because especially when people are trying to lose weight with PCOS as well, because what do people think? They're like, right, I need to run. I need to run a lot.
Which I do run a lot.
Yeah.
Just because I love it.
Yeah, which is great and it's amazing. What we find with people with PCOS who are trying to manage their weight, that actually doing kind of like a lot of cardio is actually like less effective.
Yeah, it's counter.
Yeah,
Because it increases your appetite, doesn't it? Like, and then
And you've got to do it for a long time. Do you know what I mean? With cardio, you're like,
but it just doesn't have the same effects really as what it would in somebody without PCOS. But what is in the research and also what people find as well is resistance training is really helpful,
Yeah,
really helpful again to
training.
manage that insulin resistance, and also like high intensity. So high intensity for short periods, so like HIIT training, things like that. So those two could be really effective exercise management strategies for people with PCOS. So there's lots of different things that can be done, but I know that sounds really overwhelming. It's like, God, I could do that, I could do that, I could do that.
Then I've heard as well, it's so like I'm constantly on TikTok, and then you hear like girls that are like only getting your steps in and reformer Pilates is what's best for PCOS. Then you hear people saying, oh, I need to take a GLP-1 if I've got PCOS to manage it. And girls are like, oh, since I've taken this, it's reversed my PCOS. It's like, can you reverse your PCOS? Does that actually work? Is that just an excuse to take it? It's like a minefield.
Yeah. And it's more with PCOS that you can manage your symptoms and you can live as if you don't have PCOS when you're not dealing with these symptoms. And the thing is, it's like none of those people are wrong because they're doing what works for them and they found a solution for them. But that doesn't necessarily mean that will be a solution for you.
Yes, and also that's a thing as well, because people push it and say, like, you know, obviously on their social media, they truly believe what they're putting out and it is obviously working for them. That it does then get quite conflicting when you, because obviously the algorithms, it stops, but then it can get quite conflicting, so it's quite confusing because it's like, should I be running? Should I not be running? Then it's like, you know what, I'm just going to set myself and just, I'm going to not bother.
continue to
because it can be so
TikTok.
overwhelming, and that's it. I think like when you're on this journey, like think about one thing at a time. Do not try and do everything that I just said like next week. So take one thing and maybe like focus on one thing for that month. See how you feel, and then okay, right, let's work with something else. So just take it steady. It's not a race to find like all of the solutions and all of the answers. It's a journey.
Yeah, I've even like found that with me, like, you know, when I learnt about like antioxidant foods, adding them in slowly to like my habitual diet, and then I've worked out like what foods, like, you know, once you've started to like reduce down and get started pretty simple, I've kind of figured out what foods flare me up a bit more. For me, it's actually, the reason I'm so passionate about it is I find it really affects my mood. That's the reason I'm so passionate about it. It's not necessarily because I am probably more on the lucky side, as in I've got lean PCOS. But for me, I still probably struggle just as much as somebody that visually is struggling more, you know? So like that was more what pushed me to want to really find out what the root cause of it is. But I suppose that's why people have got conflicting views, because the main thing that reduces your symptoms is weight management, if I'm right.
That's one of the things where you can see a significant reduction. But some of those other things that I mentioned for you can still help to manage symptoms. But question for you: so when you say it mainly affected your mood, is that because of like the symptoms that you were experiencing, or in what way did it?
I felt really up and down. Like when I think about like maybe like me like 3 months ago, and even if I ask my mum like how are my moods, how am I as a person, and she would say I'm slightly more balanced.
Yeah.
I would just be a bit more dramatic, and I know I am an actress, like I am.
It's
so
your job.
dramatic,
One hopes that you'd be quite good at it.
But I just don't know, like everything felt less overwhelming. I had less of like heart flutters.
Yeah.
I had less like I need to lay on a cold kitchen floor kind of feeling, and less brain fog.
Yeah.
When I started to like so significant changes in your day-to-day feelings.
But hormones
Yeah.
can do that, can't they? I mean, it's crazy that we as women live in this cyclical world where every month we go through such a change.
Oh,
And if
yeah.
you're dealing with, on top of that, an imbalance of other
Yeah.
hormones as well, like, of course that's going to affect you.
And then sometimes,
Yeah.
obviously, with the absent period as well, every now and again, you know, when you see the visual, that's why I felt like that. It's like, okay, reassurance. And then it's like, oh, am I going crazy? Or am I a woman, or am I going crazy? Like, you know, so you want to make sure that everything's working properly.
Yeah.
So, you know, because we're not running away from the fact that there's going to be times in the month where like, you know, literally you hear girls talking about, I don't understand the phases of the cycle. But like, you know, sometimes we feel better about ourselves. Sometimes it's like crying. Like, and I understand that you can't feel on top of the world at all times being a woman, but it would be nice to be able to understand yourself. So then like when it does come, you can almost be like, I know why I'm feeling like I want to bite everyone's head off.
Yeah, totally.
But
And
unpredictability, that's a difficult thing, isn't it? If you're not getting a period.
it's exactly what I was going to say, because it's like now people are becoming so much more aware of their cycles, which is great. Like we're a generation now that understand our cycle more than anybody ever has in the past.
But imagine not having an app to track your period
I
now.
know.
Like,
I'm like,
Right?
it's 10 days before my period.
what did
I
we do?
know.
Write
Yeah,
it in our
I know.
diaries?
I
Put
think
it on
you can
the
be more
wall?
gentle with yourself. So if it's like, oh, I really, really fancy a Twix, well, you know why, hon. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. But if people don't have periods or they're irregular, it makes it really difficult to understand that. So yeah, it's another barrier. But I think, you know, in terms of PCOS, it's often thought of, oh, it's a reproductive condition, but actually it affects so many other areas of health. As we say, like mental health, for example, it can influence metabolic health. So it's not just contained within that kind of like reproductive arena.
What's the wildest thing you've read online about something to do for PCOS?
Obviously, probably the most up and coming wild one is taking a GLP-1. That's wild.
Is the science behind that just because people's weight would come down and in turn that will help, basically?
In essence, yeah. I mean, there's also stuff like research that's going on in terms of like, can it actually reduce inflammation as well?
Yeah.
So, and, you know, so I work in many different fields, but, you know, I've attended quite a lot of international conferences around GLP-1s and these medications. And actually the data on them is actually really quite good.
Brilliant,
in terms of their effectiveness. So for some people, if it offers them a tool to help them to manage their weight and get them to a place where they want to be, then it can actually be a reasonable intervention for some people. But again, it's like we were talking about people's jigsaw puzzles and what it looks like for those individual people. So I think there are responsible ways in which GLP-1s can be used to manage weight, whether that's in the context of PCOS or something else. But it's not the answer for everybody.
Yeah, it was just kind of like, then you get on the algorithm of it and it was like, oh my God, this is the fixing tool. Because sometimes, obviously, when you feel a bit emotional about it and you feel like, you know, I was literally Googling last night, is gravy all right?
Yeah.
It's just like, geez, like, I just need, can I catch a break? But I don't know if that's because I am quite a studious person, as in,
Perfectionist.
I mean, don't ask me how many GCSEs I've got, but when I'm passionate about something and I want to find a solution, I'll put my all into it. I'm textbook, you know, if you told me I need to like jump up and down 3 times a day before I wake up to cure my PCOS, I'd be jumping 6.
Definitely. And you know what, there is also like risks with the GLP-1 things. For somebody like yourself, when you've got lean PCOS, it could push you into an underweight category. So that's why it's really important that people don't say, just because this worked for me, it will work with everybody with PCOS, because it could actually be a really bad thing for some people.
But it's like that with all medical products or clinical products or interventions, that they're probably going to have contraindications. So there's going to be other things that may come up as a result of that. But I just that's why we're so passionate about like diet and lifestyle, because changing to a Mediterranean diet is hugely unlikely that you're going to have any of super reverse side effects from having more macro,
Yeah, we can all just come round for a mackerel salad and have a happy life.
Wee mackerel salad, mackerel on toast.
But I think you're right as well, and it can feel overwhelming because I think when you're suffering, you just want to throw everything at it, as you do, your personality is. But I think the important thing as well, and what we've realised, is if you chuck everything at it, you then don't know what's helped it.
Yeah.
So just like doing it
Slow and
as a more
steady
long
wins the race.
and we all want quick fixes, right? If someone gave us a pill for anything, we'd go,
go on then. Yeah.
but unfortunately, and it's the same with gut health, it is much more long term.
Yeah.
And actually, noticing what the triggers are and actually tuning in. Like, I think unless you have a condition, I wouldn't tune in unless I'm hungover or I've got the flu. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's why it's so important to go, actually, I've taken this or I've changed this. How is that making me feel? And that's why we, even if you ask me today, like, what did you have for your breakfast? I'm like, I have no idea. Literally, I don't know. But like, that's why we created like the tracker in our app to actually, you can put what you've eaten, what your mood is, symptoms, stools, all the rest of it. Because you're like, actually, I can't remember what I did yesterday. Never mind, what I ate.
So you can have a look back at your food
and see actually, how it made me feel and what did I actually change? Because now I can't remember.
And this is why I would like to eventually transition over into like, and I think this is why it's so funny, isn't it, that people enforce so many things, but like intuitively eating, because nobody knows yourself. Nobody knows you better than yourself.
Yeah.
You might have pesto fried eggs for breakfast. I can't stand pesto. You could keep telling me I need to eat pesto eggs, but I don't like
My mum hates it as well. She's got a sort of passionate aversion like you have.
Yeah, I used to love
if it's on a pizza, she's like, I can smell it. I'm like,
I used to love it. I used to eat them raviolis with it in, everything.
Oh, nice.
I had a really dodgy one from a certain supermarket. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna disgrace them, and I threw it up. So no more pesto.
And that is a lot of it. We always say like personalisation is to do with behaviour. A lot of the time, rather than doing a test and somebody telling you this is what you've got to eat and why.
Exactly, because just even in terms of kind of like healthy eating in general, like everybody kind of like knows what to eat, what to have more of, what to have less of, but it's the behaviour change. It's changing our behaviours to do that.
It's the habits as well.
Yeah.
Because half the time, like, you won't even realise. But I'm so like, I always question every little thing that I do. So I'm like, why do I do that? Like, literally, the minute I put my fork down from my evening meal, I always have fruit for a dessert, like through the week. I instantly think about that, and I was like, analysing it the other day, like, why do I do that? My friend like waits another hour. I'm like, as soon as I finish that, I'm like, right, I need to go straight onto that. And it's like, it's every single individual has their schedule, knows what they need to do, and it's like little habits. So it's like actually creating a healthier lifestyle is looking at your own individual habits.
Yeah.
You might enjoy a chocolate bar when you get on the train. It's swapping it for something healthier.
Exactly. And I think with habits, to be able to create them, it needs to be something that is sustainable. So people, something that we often hear with PCOS is that people may try and do the keto diet. Now, for the vast majority of people that I've come across that have tried to do the keto diet have not been able to sustain it.
it does not look fun.
No.
The keto bread's vile.
It does not look fun.
Yes, not the one for me.
No.
So yeah.
Mediterranean's more fun, personally.
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
And loads of people are doing that anyway. I think as well, like, when it's like you say, when you had a kind of shock diagnosis, and it wasn't like none of these things sometimes are binary as well. So they're like, oh well, we need to do a bit more testing. It wasn't like you've got this, you've not got this, and da da da. And when you're kind of your foundations are shook like that, you're like, oh god, right, so I can't have anything. You have to completely reverse all your habits again and be like, okay, so what is it?
I
that
didn't
I like
really panic, because I actually do, because my auntie lives in the south of France. I did actually, and that's how I love to eat. Like, that's when I'm like, oh yes, I can't wait to go away on holiday. So I did kind of eat like that at home anyway. Like, I am a girl that, like, I'm probably going to go and get a salad project after this. I'm a salad kind of girl anyway. So I am quite lucky in the fact that I didn't have to completely panic, as in, don't get me wrong, I love my chips and things like that, but there wasn't much for me to swap out. It was just more like the intricate things. Like, I find that butter plays a bit of havoc with me.
Right.
So I kind of had to, and it's not necessarily cutting it out now. I found it swaps, because it's getting more research now. There is just easy, simple swaps you can do. Like, I changed my fry light to olive oil instead of, just little things that help.
And I think it's a really good approach as well because, you know, we've got like the Western diet and then we've got like the Mediterranean diet, and then like to swap from one to the other might be like quite intense.
Yeah, it's a lot.
If that is what your diet
Overnight
like. But
as well.
if you can do it, okay, I'm going to make this swap, I'm going to make this swap, I'm going to make this swap, and then all of a sudden you're over here instead of over there and making your way towards this kind of like, Mediterranean style diet. But I think, you know, on that as well, we're not aiming for perfection. You know, we can still have those
We can have
streaks.
red wine with a Mediterranean diet, can't we?
We can, exactly.
But we know that if you pair it with something, it's fine. So, you know.
You know what? We wrote, when we wrote our book, the alcohol chapter of our book could have been about 75 pages long. We did it with a liver specialist from UCL. And the publisher was like, why is this chapter so
Did
big?
you guys
And we're
really
like,
enjoy writing
Yeah.
this section?
you could, I mean, you and Gautam, who wrote it with us, was just like, okay, and he was like, well, red wine, you know, it's high in polyphenols, but it's still alcohol, and blah, blah, and we're like, how much? And he was like, okay, guys, but I think it is that we want to know that we can still have the things that we like, and also that we're not, because probably as well, like food is probably more associated. It's more stressful for you now because you think, can you have things or you can't?
It's not necessarily stressful. I just always think to myself, because obviously I'm all about my mood and being good energy as a person, which is why I go to the gym and try and feel the best about myself so I can be kind to others. I just don't want to feel bad. It's not necessarily like an aesthetic point of view. It's obviously feeling confident about yourself does enable you to be a nicer to others. But I think it's more about like, I just don't want to be a head case.
Yeah. You want to be nice, happy, and fun, Tillie.
Yeah, I just want to be high vibes, Tillie, living life. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to feel sad off a cake. Like, is it worth it? Even though it's nice for that 5 seconds, is it nice for the 5 hours after where I'm feeling a little bit emotional?
But also like the pressures at your age, like this is the age where you should be footloose, fancy free, not having to worry about any of that. And that's the thing, like with PCOS, like that's why I was so surprised at your age. It's just because more people get diagnosed later because it is when they're trying for when they're thinking about their fertility.
Well, this is it, because when people are at the point of infertility, so not being able to conceive after a year of trying,
Is that the
So it's after a year.
after a year is
Right.
infertility. If somebody is over the age of 35, it's like after 6 months.
Okay.
Because things
Wow.
need to be kind of like investigated a little bit quicker. But that's when we start to do those investigations and start to look into things. So yeah, it can be a time at which diagnosis can happen.
Well, I think it's a time as well that you're more aware of your body
And your cycles and
yeah,
stuff.
Yeah.
But I just think it's more for me, like, there's enough things in I feel really like selfish, but in the generation I'm growing up in, that can affect your mental health. But if you've got this going on dormant or like silently in the background, like, why not try and, you know, fight against what's coming for us anyway and feel good within yourself, like mentally and physically. I just think it's something that should be more talked about, and it is, and we're, as a generation, we're learning to be more gentle with ourselves, but like you could be being ungentle with yourself physically without knowing, you know, like simple swaps that can make you feel so much better. I'm all for it.
And I just think a lot of people wouldn't expect that if they had something like PCOS that a dietitian would be an option for them. Like, and I think the awareness there of like knowing that your diet would affect it is, I just don't think many people would put 2 and 2 together.
And this is it. I think when people get a health condition or they're like, oh, I might have this, which you absolutely need to do, which is go to your doctor and get the diagnosis. And then they're like, right, okay, my doctor will look after the management now. But actually, some doctors are amazing. And some doctors have that lifestyle lens and they know to look at diet. They know to look at activity. They know to look at other factors. But actually, it's a really good idea to work with a dietitian who specialises in PCOS, because they could be the person that can help you to manage those symptoms, potentially without medication.
Yeah, and help you navigate all the cowboy nonsense that you're reading online as well.
And like, you know, people in my profession, they have the time. You know, if you've got a consultation, you've got like, whether it's half an hour, whether it's an hour, you can talk through those things. A doctor's consultation is 10 minutes. And that's not saying anything on the doctors. That's not their fault. That's just what the health system's like.
Yeah.
So actually, like, spending time with an expert on the area so you can understand it and then understand what is going to be the next best steps for you can be really valuable.
Yeah, and also, if you think about it with a doctor, they kind of have got to do the one size fits all. Because really, like PCOS, the first thing they say is, oh, go on the pill, you need to lose weight.
Yeah.
But you've not even
that's
looked
it.
at
Two
me.
things.
And
Yeah.
it's like, what?
And it's
like,
just, it's really,
so I need to lose more weight. Like, what? I'm running like 10K every day. I can't run 20. Like, come on now. Like,
Yeah. And you know what? It's sadly such a textbook response from a doctor. Lose weight, here's the pill. How really is that helping you to manage the condition? It's not.
but don't worry about the extremely inflammatory foods that you're eating and swap them out. Just lose weight and eat less of them. Do you know what I mean? It is a minefield, but I already feel even further on my PCOS journey from Venus. I've really enjoyed myself, guys.
Speaking of which, is there anything else that you wanted any other burning questions that you had for Ro while she's here? I'm sure you can exchange WhatsApp details and go and see Ro in clinic afterwards. But
Yeah, I was just about to say what's your schedule looking like Monday to Sunday.
she's packed her bag, she's moving in.
Yeah. You could just cook for me. We'll have a Mediterranean dinner party.
In Italy, right?
In Italy,
Perfect.
obviously.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We're there. And we always on the podcast ask if you have any, it's obviously called Chat and Shit, any funny poo related stories that you'd like to contribute.
You always do a final wee.
A final wee.
After a poo.
You do think about it. You start with a wee, then you do a poo, then you do a little trickle.
God, that actually could be it.
You're going to always notice it now. Someone's going to say, hurry up, I need to get on the top. Hang on. Just do my final wee.
Wee. Okay. Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to do that
How
tonight.
the hell when we've chatted shit for
know.
so long?
This is a
Has never come up before.
revelation. This is a revelation.
Yeah, you will.
I want to go and do one now just to
Yeah, just to check. Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You're going to sit on the toilet and you're going to think, I've not done my final
Not
wee.
to my final wee. Oh my God, it's a good excuse to stay there and hide,
Yeah.
I'll get
from my
scrolling back
1-year-old.
out again.
Yeah.
I'm just doing my final wee. He's
Yeah.
on the door. Ro, what is the kind of first step? If anyone's listening to this and they're like, I think I've got PCOS, I was diagnosed recently, what would be like step one beyond obviously everything with your GP and that process? Like what would be step one for everyone to find out trusted sources of research and what to do next?
Yeah, I think the best step forward is to education. So educate yourself on the condition, but look at reputable sources, even things like NHS choices, sources that we can trust. Social media can be a difficult place, but it can be a very useful place as well. So you can follow reputable healthcare professionals that specialise in certain topics. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. But yeah, it can be really, really informative in that way. So I think that's a really good foundation. If you're struggling to do that by yourself, then go and seek support. Get somebody like a healthcare professional who specialise in the area to help to guide you along that journey. And then you can start to make decisions as to, okay, what steps am I going to take next? But as I mentioned before, don't try and do everything at once. Take it one step at a time. What's the most kind of important thing for you? What do you think is the best thing for you to attempt to tackle in the first instance, and just take it step by step?
Yeah, I think also notifying what it is about PCOS that makes you feel bad.
Exactly.
And
what
if
is
you
it
are
that you want
struggling
to
with your weight
tackle?
and that affects your confidence and whatever, that's the bit I want to tackle.
Yeah.
For me, it's like the more mental side. I want to feel more balanced and I want to have a healthy, regular menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
I think that I want to do it to have more glowing skin. I think when you focus on the one symptom that affects you the most, I think that then starts your journey, I think.
Yeah, it's such a good bit of advice. I think that's my bit of advice, is just be more Tillie. So you're a little positive Polly.
Yeah.
And wait for the final bloody wee.
Yeah, wait for your final week, because honestly, if not, you're wasting your time, because you're going to have to go back to the toilet to do your final wee, so you might as well just enjoy yourself and do it start to finish. Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much. Honestly,
thank you.
I have learned so much.
Same.
And yeah, you're both amazing, incredible women.
I know, we've had good gut and good vibes.
Yeah.
Good vibes.
Good vibes, guys.
Did this got you excited? Join us on our 100 Days to Hack Your Gut Health programme. The link is in the bio. Come and find us on Instagram at The Gut Stuff. In fact, we're at The Gut Stuff pretty much everywhere. So hit subscribe. Your gut will thank you for it. Keep your shit together and have a gut day.